Hello, this video is just some basic advice for taking an online class. And I decided to create this video because a lot of students seem to have conflicted expectations and unrealistic expectations about exactly what an online class entails. What I wanted to do is give you just some basic pointers of what to expect from an online class and try to dispel some myths that are associated with taking one. Let's go ahead and get started. A lot of times when students take an online class, they expect that they're going to feel the exact same kind of connection with their professor that they will feel in a face-to-face class. This is actually probably the single biggest complaint that we end up getting back, not just in Psych 100, but across all of our online courses. Not just at this college, not just at Peninsula College, but at other places that I have taught and other places where they've used online courses before. The students usually say that they just don't feel very connected. They feel very disconnected from the professor, and they feel not really plugged in to the rest of the class when they're taking an online class. This usually ends up getting spun in a couple ways. We hear complaints like, this is just a terrible way to teach, it doesn't work, or you can't just assess our learning using only examinations, and other students assume, in addition to sort of this feeling of disconnection and feeling like there's not a lot of direct contact between the professor and the student, other students also tend to believe this myth that an online course is going to actually be easier or less stressful, and honestly just sort of more of a nerfed or softball version of a face-to-face course. So a lot of students get encouraged to take online courses because they think it'd be an easier way to get through a class that they are required to take. This assumption is, some of the assumptions that go into this myth include the assumption that the student thinks, hey, I can just work on the class whenever I want to. The deadlines are always flexible with an online class. It's supposed to fit to my schedule and not the other way around. This next myth is particularly related to psychology courses, not specifically online classes, but psychology courses in general. There's a general sense that it's sort of a kind of a easy way to get a credit or a social science credit. The assumption is, well, we're just really just talking about problems. Psychology is just common sense. It's very straightforward and intuitive. All you're really doing is just learning how to talk about people's problems. Psychology classes, they're supposed to be super easy. It's not supposed to be challenging. I'm an A and I'm an A student, or I'm a B student, and I don't understand why I'm not getting this. The fact of the matter is, psychology is designed around the assumption that we are challenging common sense. And a lot of the stuff we study in this field is extraordinarily counterintuitive, and it requires a sophisticated understanding of the scientific method and a sophisticated understanding of the way the mind works. And, well, to be honest, when you examine the human mind, there's nothing more full of confounding problems and contradictory insights. So it's going to be a challenging class. Like I said, what I want to do is spend some time debunking, especially these first two myths, and then give you guys some tools to sort of help you better succeed in these courses, because again, the disconnection really comes from this expectation that the students will always feel connected with their professors, and this is an online class. I mean, you're not interacting with me directly unless you come into my office hours. And the idea that online courses should be easier than face-to-face courses is ridiculous. Again, we need to maintain a standard of quality education. So it, in some ways, can be more challenging than a face-to-face class because it assumes that you're able to work independently and do things within the framework of deadlines that we've established. And again, as for psychology, well, that myth's going to get debunked pretty darn fast when you start getting into some of the material from chapters 2 and 3 in this class. So you'll see as we work our way through it. Let me start out this sort of debunking process of these myths by explaining a little bit about who the online course is designed for, what kind of student tends to really do well and succeed in an online class. Online courses are designed for students who cannot make it into the main campus and then you can insert whatever reason you want to insert here. These were designed largely so students who maybe live out of state, live out of town, people who don't necessarily live in Port Angeles or live close to the institution that they're taking the courses from, they can still correspond and still get a high quality educational experience at a course that has the same kinds of high standards, but allows them to do that work from a distance. It's also designed for the student who wants to take a class, but they need the class to fit in more with their schedule, and that is to a certain degree. And what I mean by that is this is the person who has, they want to commit the time after they're done with work to putting a couple hours into a class as they're working their way towards a degree while they're already working another job, or they're a stay-at-home mom, or they're a single working mom who is also balancing a job and taking care of kids. They're a single dad in the same situation. This is, again, people who are trying to make a living at the same time that they are going to school. So the online course design and the setup allows for those students to find a way to pack in their education around their already existing responsibilities in their daily life. This is also the kind of course that's designed for the student who works really well independently and is able to keep themselves on schedule and able to keep themselves on task. So if this is a student who feels like they don't want necessarily the classroom experience where they're constantly seeing a professor on a daily basis, and they feel like they can manage the rate of the process of their education on their own time, then the online course system is a very, very good bet for them as well. And finally, this is for the student who does not feel like they need a lot of direct attention from or interaction with their instructor. Students who meet these 4 criterion, especially that last criterion, typically end up doing really, really well in online courses. Now, for that last one, the idea that you're not going to spend a lot of time interacting with your professor, that's really up to you. If you want that interaction, it is available, but you, as an online student, need to take the initiative to manufacture that contact. In other words, you need to take it, the responsibility is really on you to come into the office hours, to make contact, and to send emails, and to communicate with your professor. You see, the thing is, when we have an online course, we assume these things about the students. Again, because these are the kinds of students that online courses are designed for. Now, if you have a different set of assumptions coming in, they're not going to match up so much with the assumptions that we're making right here about who our online students are. And, that happens sometimes. But if you are in that category of student who really does need a little bit more direction for how they set things up, I try to combat that by making sure that my online course is very well structured and very well scheduled. That's deliberate. There's a reason I set things up the way that I do, is to keep students who maybe struggle with keeping themselves on task to use that structure that I've already put there to help them through this course. Some students feel a little bit held back by this, and I understand that, but I'm trying to sort of strike a middle ground here to kind of make sure there is a consistent pace so the students can continue on, at least without getting too wildly off track. And again, the biggest complaint, again, this is just the nature of an online course. If you feel disconnected, remember, we assume that when you're taking an online class, you are a student who doesn't necessarily need that direct contact. Now, if that is not true, again, there are mechanisms in place to help us with that. That's why I post the discussion forums online. That's to give you an opportunity to reach out and talk, not just with me, but also with your fellow classmates. That's why I've given you the information about my office hours and also information about how to contact me. If you feel like you're disconnected, if you want more instructor interaction, then take advantage of those specific things that are already in place to help you with that. Because otherwise, we're going to assume that you fit into one of these 4 categories. So it's up to you to speak up to get the connection that you need. The online course setup may not work so well for you if you maybe meet one of these categories. Now, that doesn't mean you should just turn around and run and drop the class right away. Far from it. I'm just trying to help you identify maybe some of the things that you expect to get out of the online course. And if you happen to fall into one of these categories, you really should listen to the advice that I gave on that last slide and really make sure you reach out and make a connection with me. So again, we develop that kind of back and forth relationship, and so you can get the help and the attention that you feel like you need. Now, if you feel like, okay, well, let me just kind of hit this first characteristic. This may not necessarily be for you if you feel like you need a constant back and forth dialogue with your professor on a nearly daily basis. That's not what the online course is designed for. If you want that, that's more of a face-to-face class sort of model. Now, again, you can get that here. You just have to take the initiative to contact me. Again, because I haven't met you in person and I'm not a telepath. So you have to let me know if you need something. So again, remember, if you're in an online class, we assume that you are capable of working independently with minimal direction or interference from us. Remember, you can still take an online class and still need that attention. You just have to let us know. And if you do that, it will radically improve your experience with online courses. Now, if you are already taking 15 credit hours and you thought that, hey, an online class is an easy way for me to squeeze in an additional course, that's a really bad idea, because you're doing just as much work in an online course as you would in a face-to-face class, especially my online courses. Again, the structure of my Psych 100 Online is identical to the structure of my face-to-face Psych 100. You are doing all the exact same work as the students who are in Psych 100, with the added benefit of the fact that you get to pause and rewind me when you want to, and of course with the obvious loss of the direct back to forth interaction with me. Now, if you expect the online courses schedule to bend to your every whim, I've got bad news for you. Again, this is designed so you can do the work when you have time to do it. It is not designed for you to just arbitrarily decide when to take the exams, when to play with the deadlines and due dates. Sorry, that's not how this game is played. The deadlines and the due dates that are established, they are set in stone, and you do need to pay attention to them, and you do need to follow them. You just need to make sure that you are paying attention to the dates that are set up in the syllabus. Follow along with those very carefully so you make sure you're getting your work done in time. An online class is not this golden ticket to just kind of do the work whenever you feel like it. There are still very clear-cut deadlines that you have to meet. So pay attention to those in your syllabus, and again, make sure we give you a lot more freedom with structuring the day-to-day mechanics of how you're going to spend your time. That is, again, the big bonus for the online course. That's where a lot of students really enjoy taking online courses, is because that element is flexible. But with the exam dates and things, and again, I've been as flexible as I can with those in terms of allowing you to take the exam within any time within a certain 24-hour period. There's still some wiggle room there, at least in terms of when during that specific day you need to take the exam, but you have to complete the exam on that specific day. So don't just assume because it's an online course all dates are flexible. They are absolutely not, and we're not going to just bend the schedule to your every whim. Yeah, there's still hard deadlines that you have to meet. Next, if you think you can just wait until the end of the week to do all the work, that is an extraordinarily bad idea, and that is where my online students in the past have really, really struggled. Don't be one of those students that waits until Friday to watch the videos. Space this out. Again, you're still doing all the work that you would normally do in a face-to-face course. You just have the freedom of kind of picking when during the day you can do it. In other words, you can have the lecture, or you can watch the video lectures at a time that's convenient for you, but you still got to watch them. I would recommend setting up a schedule and sort of dividing out when during every single day you can actually sit down and watch these, but you still want to stay on top of this. The worst thing you can do for yourself is to let the work for this course to pile up before each exam. That's why I've designed the exams with these hard and fast dates. It's to make sure that students who aren't used to pacing themselves can learn to pace themselves and still make the important deadlines and cutoffs, so I don't just just have a student who waits to take all 4 exams until the very, very last week of the quarter, which would just be a huge, gigantic nightmare. There's no way you could get this course's work done within the period of 2 or 3 weeks in December. It's just not going to happen that way. And, of course, last but definitely not least, if you think this is going to be easier than a face-to-face class, I've got bad news for you. Again, I'm holding you to the exact same standards that I hold my face-to-face course. That is important because it means that I am maintaining the quality of the educational experience. That means I'm not just softballing you guys through this class and giving you sort of empty credits for just sort of sitting and nodding your heads to agree with me. I believe in the value of hard work, and I definitely believe that you can still get a high-quality educational experience through an online class. But in order to accomplish that, I have to maintain my standards. That's really me doing my job right, making sure that I'm holding you guys accountable as students. That's why I assess using the exam system that I do. That's why I give you guys the video lectures that I do, and I spend so much time creating so much material for you guys to go through. It's because in order to really understand psychology, you need to put the work in to do it. Now let me talk about the that third myth that I introduced all the way at the beginning of the video, the idea that psychology courses are supposed to be easy. Wrong. That's been that is an issue not just with online psychology courses, but with face-to-face psychology courses. Students are very often shocked at the difficulty level of your basic intro to psychology course. Now, okay, it's not like the hardest thing in the world, but it is definitely challenging because it is an enormous field of study. And it requires you, especially in intro to psychology courses, to end up mastering 4 to 5 completely different, oftentimes contradictory scientific perspectives. And you have to go through an enormous amount of information just to take care of the requirements for any basic introduction to psychology class. You see, what we're dealing with here is a science of human behavior, which means that a lot of the ideas we're going to study are going to end up being counterintuitive, and they end up taking a lot of very hard work to grasp. It's because human behavior is counterintuitive. People do not behave just by following along a series of very simple, easy to understand behavioral rules. They often act against their own interests. They often make decisions that make zero sense. And there's a lot of ways that you can interpret human behavior. You can look at it from a biological perspective. You can look at it from a purely behaviorist perspective where you just examine the observable behaviors. You can look at it from an information systems perspective where you're thinking about the kinds of information that people have available to them at a specific time when they make a choice. So you can look at it from a purely cognitive perspective where you explore the way that memory and things like that influence our decision-making process, or an emotional perspective where you think about the kinds of affective or emotional processes that are taking place when a person makes a choice. You can also take a look at it from an abnormal psychology perspective, or a developmental perspective, or a social perspective. There's loads of different theories in this field, and I am going to do my best to give you a clear cross-section of those different ideas. But as you can tell, and again, I've touched on pieces of information and actual theories we are really going to spend time on this quarter. There's a lot to cover. This is not a class for you just if you enjoy giving good advice to your friends. I mean, there's definitely something that you're going to find here, but that's not what psychology is just all about. People are incredibly complex. Even the simplest person you can think of, the person who seems like they're just very, very straightforward and honest, they are an extraordinarily complex information processing system. And there's quite a lot going on beneath the surface that is difficult to understand. So difficult, in fact, we end up bumping into probably one of the single largest mysteries in the entirety of the field of science, the mystery of consciousness itself. So there's quite a lot to explore here that is challenging. Now, that doesn't mean it's impossible. Please don't get that impression, and I'm not trying to scare you away. I'm just trying to be honest with you about what you should expect from this class. But again, if you put the work in, you will get quite a lot of amazing stuff out of this course. I can guarantee that. Now, the way that I approach things is taught psychology classes at a variety of different educational institutions. The first time I started teaching was as a master's student back at Washington State University, where I taught Intro to Psychology. I TA'd for honors Intro to Psychology, and I was the coordinating teaching assistant there for the statistics sections for the psychology courses and also for research methods courses later on. Then I began to teach at the University of Portland after that. Then I taught in Buffalo, New York at DeYuval College. And I really have quite a lot of experience teaching just about every conceivable psychology class you can think of. I have taught courses on consciousness, and that one was pretty freaking awesome. Let me be really honest with you. I love that class. I've taught courses on evolutionary psychology, sensation and perception, cognition and memory. I've taught courses on behaviorism and statistics, the history of psychology. I've taught courses on research methods. I've taught lots and lots and lots of different psychology classes. I've also conducted my own independent research in the field of psychology. That's why I have a PhD. That's why I can call myself doctor, because I have actually worked as a research scientist in this field. And I am bringing that kind of pedigree here to this course. And I have modeled this class and modified this class, and we follow the same basic kinds of topic progression. When we use the exact same kinds of examinations and kinds of assignments that are used at Washington State University, at the University of Washington, at Harvard University, and definitely at DeYuval College, and also at the University of Portland, and they are all really great schools. So, again, there's just places. Oh yeah, and of course, this is all initially based off of the work that I did back at the University of Kansas, where I took my first psychology course when I was an undergraduate student, when I was in your shoes, from Dr. David Holmes, whose model has been very widely adopted. And again, Washington State University, University of Kansas, again, these are all really, really solid schools, especially University of Kansas. That's one of the most highly ranked psychology programs in the entire country, and also in the world. So you are getting the same kind of experience any other student at any really solid four-year college is going to get. They all use the same basic system for a reason. This system works, and it's the best way for us to move through an enormous topic at the best possible pace and give you the biggest picture of what psychology is like. So what I'm doing, it's not just weird, and I didn't just cook up this stuff in, my closet when I was just bored on a Sunday or whatever. No, this is a widely used, very well developed and very well tested and proven system for teaching psychology. Bottom line is this. If you're looking for a blow-off class, or if you were looking for a set of extra easy credits to already shoehorn into your massive schedule, or if you just wanted to not really work, look elsewhere. You are going to be challenged by this course. Now, again, do not take that as me trying to scare you off. That's not what I'm doing. I'm just being honest with you. Again, I'm a very cards-on-the-table kind of professor. I want to make sure you understand my expectations as my students, so you know what you're getting into. Now, I understand that I'm saying it's challenging and scary and tough, and I'm not afraid of those words. And I don't want you to be afraid of them either. You see, when I think back on my own career, it's the courses that pushed me that are my favorites. Those are the ones that I remember. Those are the ones that I learned the most in. Yeah, I'm offering you a challenging experience where you are really going to get to see what you're made of. And I want you to rise to that challenge. And I know that if you put the time and energy and effort into it, you can do this. And not just that, you're going to be amazed at the rewards you get from it. So this is my invitation to come and work hard and see what the rewards of working hard can really pay off for you. It's important for me to address the nature of the teacher-to-student relationship, because I think that a lot of modern college students, and especially younger generation students, and even some older generation students, really a lot of students, they struggle with this. Our primary relationship works like this. You are paying me to evaluate your work so I can see how well you understand it. That is the nature of our relationship. That's the transaction. I do not just work for you. I work for the state of Washington. I work for the college itself. I do work for hundreds of other students every single quarter. And I also work for myself because I have really high expectations of myself as a teacher. And that's why I keep pushing myself to continuously improve. And I expect my students to do the same thing. So I'm going to do my best to explain the information here and give you the opportunity to work on this stuff. But I'm here to evaluate how well you understand it and how well you apply what you've learned. This means a couple important things, and I have to clarify this because there are a lot of students who do not understand this anymore. You are not entitled to an A. You are paying for the opportunity to be evaluated, and it's up to you to earn the A if you really, really want it. Now again, remember, there's a rumor going around that I don't give out A's, and it is completely and totally false. I absolutely do give out A's. I absolutely do give out 4.0s, but the thing is, you're not just going to get handed that just for showing up with a smile on your face and a song in your heart. You've got to earn it, and that is completely up to you. You've got to meet me halfway. Now, when you receive a grade, the basic rule that I use is the grade that you have received is the grade that you earn. If you are not happy about a grade, the first thing you should do is come in and talk with me about it. And let's take a look at the exam or the paper that you turned in that got a score you didn't like. Let's find out what happened with it. And what I will do is help you try to improve the way you approach those things so you can do better on the next paper or on the next exam. But I am very, very careful about the way that I grade and evaluate things. And sure, I do make mistakes every once in a while. But for the most part, really, you should, when you get a grade back, the fact of the matter is what you receive is what you have earned. I'm not in the business of grading students down just because they express opinions that are different than mine. Really, none of the professors I know are like that. That's kind of a myth about how college professors act. And as a matter of fact, the grading for the exams is automated, so it's sort of out of my hands anyway. If you get a grade you don't like, again, come talk with me and let's figure out what happened. Now, when you get a grade you don't like, and it might happen, okay, let's just be really honest here. Let's explore the worst case scenario so we know how to react to it and we have a plan for how to deal with it. Again, this is just my cards on the table approach. I want you to remember something, and this is something that all of my students struggle with. I don't care what generation you're coming from. You get a C on your exam, you get a D on your paper, and what ends up happening is students get mad because they feel like the professor is attacking them or that they're administering some kind of value judgment on the student. And that's not what a grade means, guys. It really isn't. They do not reflect your inherent value. They don't reflect your self-worth. They don't reflect your value as a human being. Here's what they do reflect: how well you prepared. They reflect how hard you worked. And they reflect how well you understand the material. And that's it. I mean, some of my best students have been my C students and my D students. They struggle with the material. They really have a hard time. But they come into my office hours and we talk. And you know what? They're some of the students I enjoy interacting with the most. And I know that sounds kind of strange and paradoxical, but they end up learning that important lesson that, their grade doesn't define who they are as a human being. They understand the learning process as a process. And a lot of students, especially if you've been a straight A student your entire life, this course might end up challenging you. So please be prepared for that. But you might end up learning this lesson the hard way. Please understand, you don't need to be perfect. There's nothing that says that you absolutely have to have a perfect score in a psychology class, especially if you're going in a field that's not related to psychology. Give yourself some grace here. And again, if you're not happy with a grade, the best thing you should do is come in and chat. Because remember, when students do not get the grades that they want, it usually is an issue of preparation more than anything else, and not a reflection of their actual capabilities. Please keep that in mind as we go forward. Now, if you get a grade that you're not too happy about, and I've had a handful of students who have struggled with this, when you're interacting with not just me, but any of your professors, remember to be respectful. You win more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. I do actually know what I'm doing. And you know what? I love my job. So please respect the fact that I'm actually here in your corner and I'm working really, really hard to teach you something. And that doesn't mean I'm just like rehashing facts and figures. I am trying to actually share my love of learning and my love of psychology with you. This, for me, this is a privilege. This is something I love doing. And sometimes part of being a teacher means you have to tell your students very clearly things they may not want to hear. I have to do this every year with some students. I have to explain to them that their way of studying for things may have worked in high school. It's not going to work in here, and you've got to work even harder than you have before. That's why, again, I've adopted this cards on the table approach. That's why it's better for me to really be clear about where my expectations are. Because, again, you go to any other school in the country, the professors are going to have these exact same levels of expectations for you. But you know what? They're not going to be as nice about it as I am to you. Let me be really straightforward. I've seen professors shout students down over stuff like that. That's not the way that I want to approach things. That's why, again, I'm being really open with you about this, and I'm explaining why I do the things that I do. Here's the thing. If I end up giving you bad news about a paper or an exam grade, it is never personal. That's one of the hardest things that, again, students who are used to getting just straight A's, they struggle with this quite heavily. I mean, I have read some lovely papers by students in the past. They wrote these amazing, very intimate details about relationships that they've had that have fallen apart, or they share these descriptions of these extremely vivid dreams. They talk about things they've struggled with to me their entire life, because that's part of being a psychology professor. People assume they can tell me anything. And, you know, they spend all this time telling me these really personal details, and they completely ignore the directions of the paper. So I've had students in the past who have told me some extraordinarily personal stuff, and I still have to give them an F for the paper because they didn't follow the directions of the assignment. Guys, that sucks. I hate having to do that, but I'm going to do it because that's my job. And that's me respecting you as my students. That's me being a good professor, is not just kind of hand-waving BS and saying, oh yeah, that's great, it's going to do fine. I'm not doing you any favors if I just give you an A for no reason without you having earned it. That's not preparing you for life. That's not preparing you for your future employer. That's me being awful at my job. Me doing my job is telling you the truth, even though you may not want to hear it. And on that note, please read the directions for the paper very carefully and take advantage of my offer to let me look at a rough draft before you submit it, to make sure that you don't fall into one of those mistakes where you just end up sharing a lot of really personal details and you get emotionally invested in a paper that is completely ignoring the point of the assignment. And to that end, I also want to point out I am not going to share the details of anything that you share with me with anybody else. That's just not the way I roll. But more details on that when we get to the paper assignment. And it's like I was just saying, I really don't enjoy giving bad grades. I don't. No professor I know does. In fact, we agonize over that, especially when we've developed a fondness for particular students, or we just really like teaching a specific class. And, you know, I'm going to be honest with you, the impartiality is one of the most important parts about being a good teacher. And part of loving your students as a professor is, as I've been saying, telling them when they've done something wrong. And again, me doing my job well, me respecting you as my student, is making sure I remain fair and I remain impartial as an instructor. And again, that's one of the reasons that the grades for the exams, they are automated. I don't handle those. The Canvas system takes care of that. And if there are any mistakes, of course, I go back over those and I will check and I make sure everything's good. The paper grades, those are handled by a human being, by me, and by nobody else. And in those cases, I have a set of very clear-cut rules that I follow to try to make sure I maintain my impartiality. So again, that's why I do the things that I do. That's why I have such high expectations. That's why I embrace the idea of being a tough professor, because I believe that actually does truly improve the quality of the work that I see from my students. And you know what? That's what my students keep telling me again and again and again after every single quarter, that they really love the fact that I pushed and challenged them. So there you go. Here's the thing. And I know some of you might be freaking out about this. Don't. Here's the rule that I follow. I assume that every single student in my class is capable of getting an A until I have evidence to demonstrate otherwise. And usually when I see students who don't end up getting a passing grade in my classes, it's largely because they completely and totally give up on the course. You put the time, you put the effort, you put the work in, you'll get far. Even when the students seem to be giving me evidence that they're not going to end up doing well, even then, I still very firmly believe that every single student who decides to work hard and apply themselves is capable of astonishing improvement. And I believe this because I've seen it, and I keep seeing it again and again and again from the students who come in when they work with me during my office hours. I have seen some remarkable turnarounds. We're talking students are getting like D's, and then they work their asses off and they end up getting A's on the remaining exams. It's possible. You can do it. You've just got to be willing to put the work in. The bottom line that I really want to drive home here is everything I'm doing, the reason I approach things the way that I do is because I am actually in your corner. I believe that you were able to do well in this class. And you know what? I believe you deserve a fair shake at a tough, rigorous, high-quality psychology course. And that is what I'm offering you this quarter. Now, the deal on your end of the table is you have to be willing to put in the work. And that's what I expect from you, and nothing less. I'm giving you my best, and that is exactly what I expect from you in return. One of the things that I have to talk with my students about every single quarter is what grades actually mean. And this is a bit of a holdover from a modern high school system, where it seems like A's and B's are as plentiful as wildflowers all over the place. Here's the thing. You know what? Actually, maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe wildflowers are endangered and actually not as plentiful. Maybe that was a really terrible metaphor. I apologize if that was a terrible metaphor. All right, that's neither here nor there. Let's get back to the grades. Grades mean something really, really different in college than they do back in high school. And this is, again, something that I learned when I got out of high school and started going to college myself and discovered that getting a C is really not the end of the world when it comes to your college GPA. So here's what the grades actually do reflect when you get them. Now, an A, again, kind of high school approach to an A is, you showed up, you had a pulse, and you paid attention sometimes. No, an A is nearly perfect, or exceptional work. This is a student who really, really, really does very, very well in the class. Now, again, it is entirely possible to get an A, but the fact of the matter is A's can be pretty rare. Again, a lot of students don't put the effort that they need to put into to get these kinds of grades out of classes, and I challenge all of you, step up your game for this course, really apply yourselves, and chase after that A. Now, a B. If you get a B, again, a lot of students think, oh, this is a bad grade. I think B means bad and A is awesome. That's not what they mean. A B means above average. It means you did better than most of the students who took this course. We'll talk a little bit about the normal distribution and what it means. A's and B's are on the tail end of the normal distribution. They are unusual grades, or they reflect excellent work and high-quality performance. So getting a B, again, that's a really good thing, and A is a really, really, really good thing. And you know what a C means? A lot of people think C means failing. Nope. C means normal. C is average. C is competent. C is you understand the basics of this field, and there you go. I mean, that's really what a C means. The majority of students who end up taking this class will end up getting C's. Now, that's not, again, me setting out to try to do this. And you don't have to be a C student. I'm not condemning you or predestining you to get a C. No. If you work hard, you can definitely get a much, much higher grade. Again, you see that thing that I keep saying is keep working hard, work hard to pull your grades up? Oh, there you go. See, C just means normal. It's standard. You get a C in Psych 100, that just reflects that you understood the material the same way the average or the majority, or around 70 to 75% of the people who take the class will understand it. That's just what the grade means. We've turned the C into the modern failing grade, and that is a massive disservice to the students who actually end up getting them, which is the majority of students who end up taking courses like this. And again, that's not just true for this class, that's true for most psychology courses in the other universities across the country. C is the average grade. That reflects, again, what we call the normal distribution, or sometimes referred to as the bell curve, where the majority of the people who take a specific exam, they end up piling up around the grade of C. That's why an average on an exam of around 70% to 75% is considered normal or standard for that exam. And my exams consistently hit that mark. Again, I'm not deliberately curving. That is just what the raw data, unchanged, ends up stacking up around. Again, I'm going to reemphasize, you are not predestined to get a C. Please calm down. Don't start freaking out. I'm not saying that I'm trying to give students C's. What I am saying, though, is that's where most students naturally tend to fall when they take these grades and take these exams. And again, C is not bad. It just means normal and standard, and there's nothing wrong with normal. If you want to do better, put in the work. D means below average. It just means you scored lower than the average level. And an F means failure. F is that means essentially that your performance really is not that much better than the flip of a coin. Now, this is, again, you kind of have to work at it to get an F in this class. That means you are spectacularly trying to not end up doing well, or you really are, there's something about the way that you're studying and preparing for the exams that is really, really off. So if that's the case, you end up getting a grade like a D or an F or even a C, and you don't like that, that's really when you should come in and talk with me during my office hours. We'll go over some ways to try to improve your study skills and try to improve your approach to things. Now, if you're a normal A, you're an A student, you come in, you take a college class, you end up getting an F on your first exam, that is usually an indicator that the study techniques that you were using in high school, they're not going to work. And I strongly encourage you to change your study skills and to change your study strategies up sooner rather than later. And really make sure that you are treating this course seriously, which means you've got to put in around 2 to 3 hours per hour of study time. And that's low for an estimation. Some recommend 4 to 5 study hours per hour that we spend on each video lecture, or per hour that you spend in class. Those are the normal rules that we recommend for all college courses, not just at this institution, but all institutions everywhere. Again, as I've said before, I know this sounds scary, but guys, this is just the way the numbers work. This is just how they're set up. Again, I'm not doing anything to these numbers. The grades, the normal distribution, the bell curve, that actually happens naturally in examination data. And it happens for a variety of different examinations. It's just kind of the way that human behavior works. Most of our behaviors follow that bell curve, but we'll talk about that when we get to chapter 2. See, here's the thing. Again, it is entirely possible to get a 4.0 in this class, and you know what? Students do it all the time, and they do so by working hard. I invite you to screw up the normal distribution data that I end up getting in. You know what? My classes do that all the time as well. I've seen test score averages as high as 80 to 85% every once in a while. And you know what? That's because my students worked their asses off and they blew the top off of the exams. You guys can do it too. Put the time into this, and you'll get, really, the more time and work you put into this course, the more you're going to get out of it. Oh yeah, one other little note, 4.0 is a 95% or better, and really the cutoffs for all these grades, it's laid out on the syllabus grading sheet. Take a look at your syllabus, read over that to see what my grading policies are if you have any questions about that. And if you have any questions that are answered by that, you just go ahead and you can send me an email or contact me. I'd be happy to talk with you about them. So I've talked about all of these things that might have been a little startling, scary, or surprising for some of you. And again, no, not trying to create panic attacks, even though I probably have already done that, and I'm sorry. But what I want you guys to do is to really pay attention and focus on this slide, because I want to tell you how to do well in an online course. The first and most important thing you can do for yourself is to create a schedule and to stick to it. The more structure that you impose, the more time you really block out to spend going over the course material, reading the textbook, which you should be doing, for sure. And watching all of the videos that are posted online, I can see the page views on those videos. You definitely, I've seen students, when I've had, lower test scores before, I take a look at the page views and the videos that were related to the test coming up. And I can see unanimously they end up dipping because students are just not watching the videos like they should to be preparing for the exams that come up. So make sure that you are really engaging with the course material. Creating a schedule and sticking to it is one of the best ways to make sure that you are preparing yourself to work through this course material. Okay, so the next thing, oh, right. In service of the creating a schedule, if you just treat this the way you would treat any face-to-face course, it will really help with the constructing schedule approach to things. So as the video lectures and materials, they end up going up or they end up getting posted, try to watch them sooner rather than waiting on those. Next, make sure you're using the online forums, you're posting questions, you're actually asking things or even talking amongst each other about the material. Make sure that you are using my email to contact me or even sending me messages through Canvas if you have questions. And come into my office hours. I say this again and again, but students every quarter continue to not come in. And that is just a bad idea. You really want to do well in the class, go into the professor's office hours and talk with them about the stuff that you're struggling with. And again, if you start to feel disconnected, like there's not enough direct back and forth or interaction, remember, it's your responsibility in an online class to connect. So come in and see me if that's what you're starting to feel. You can, again, ask questions online or send me an email. Now, be prepared to work hard and to embrace constructive criticism. That's sort of the biggest benefit of the college education. You have access to a PhD in psychology. You have a direct pipeline to me, not a teaching assistant, guys. That's something that a lot of students at major colleges and universities would just die of jealousy over. They very often, if you get into a big psychology program, you might not see a professor until your third or your fourth year, and you have access to one right now that you can connect with and listen to and talk with. And be prepared to embrace constructive criticism. That means if I'm telling you, this paper that you sent to me, it doesn't work, or we're talking about your study skills, and I tell you, you really need to step up your game, let me give you some suggestions for improvement, listen to that stuff. I mean, there's a reason I was able to get a PhD, is because I'm really, really good at this stuff. Please take advantage of my skills. Let them work for you. And the only way to do that, of course, is partly to come into my office hours. Now, remember, I am kind of old school about this stuff. I really do believe very deeply in the power and value of hard work. And as I've been saying over and over again, this course rewards effort. The more you put in, the more you get out. The next thing is to make sure to be professional in your interactions, not just with me, but with other students on the discussion forums online. It's a great chance to practice your social skills and also a great way to kind of network and connect with some people who are in our community or maybe even outside of our community to kind of, link up, form study groups, and interact with each other and talk about the material. When you get criticism back, or you hear one of the lectures that just makes you just think, oh, he's totally wrong about that, don't take things personally. Really, really don't. Listen to the constructive criticism, and remember, my job is to help you. And when I bring these things up and I talk about them, I'm not out to insult you. I'm out to try and help you improve something, okay? And again, this is really, when it comes to being professional, here are the things that I look for. Make sure that you are respecting others. In other words, treat other people the way you want them to treat you. Make sure you respect the material and respect your instructor. To receive respect, you need to give it first. That means if you're disruptive or insulting, or you post racist or sexist things in the discussion forums, that's not going to end well for anybody involved. I just want to make sure that's really, really clear cut. And that means also when you email me, don't start out by typing, LOL, OMG, Professor, you are terrible. This is awful. I hate your class. LOL, you sucks. Something like that. Look, when you're interacting with me through an email, you need to use proper etiquette. to do that, that means actually include a heading, and do not use leet speak or type in memes or acronyms. Actually write out your messages. Again, that's treating me with respect. If you are disrespectful, that violates part of the student code of conduct policy and also my personal policies of this class. And again, disciplinary action can be pursued in those cases. So respect others. Let's create a positive environment for our online classroom. Please make sure that you acknowledge that the world does not revolve around you. This has to do with scheduling things. That means when we've set up the schedule for this, it's the schedule in terms of like when the paper is due and when the examinations are going to be given. Those dates are what they are. And you know, if you're having a bad day, or if you just really don't feel like taking the exam that day because you were just out really late, or this amazing game came out on your PlayStation, you really want to play that, or you were out drinking really late, or and this is a real excuse I got from a student, I want to take the exam at a later time because I totally drove to Portland last night for this awesome Dave Matthews Band concert. It was so great. No. Those are not valid excuses to avoid turning in a paper on time or taking a test. I am in the hospital because my foot was chopped off. That's a valid excuse. I'm more than happy to work with that. Or a car drove through my house. Other valid excuse. Yes, we will be flexible with that. Going to see Dave Matthews Band and then feeling too tired to come in to take the exam? Yeah, no. Just no. No. Yeah, and that's, yeah, I think I drove that point home pretty well. The other really important thing to remember, and it's super hard to remember this sometimes for students, especially if you were struggling or you're frustrated with the course, you have got to remember that I'm in your corner. And I know that you can do this. And I know that's tough, and I know that I sound like some kind of, kind of pompous jerk when I give these lectures, but you got to remember, I'm not an evil vampire out to ruin your life, even though you might start to think that by the time we're done. I am absolutely in your corner, and I want you to succeed. And I will do what I can within reason to help you with that. So if you get stuck, if you get hung up on something, if you get frustrated, if you get angry, if you're just really confused about the material, the first thing you should do is to just come in and see me, or touch base with me through an email. And remember to follow these other directions, okay? So again, I'm probably the most important resource you have access to this quarter, so please take advantage of that. Bottom line, now that I've said all of this scary stuff, here's the thing. When we get into the swing of this, at a certain point, the work will seem less like work, and you may find that you're starting to enjoy the material and really like the stuff that I'm talking about. Good! If that happens, fantastic! Take advantage of that. If you're really just stressing out constantly about this course, again and again, really seriously, if you're at that point where you're just having anxiety attacks over this class, please come in and talk with me. Really, please come in and talk with me. I'll do whatever I can, again, within reason, to try to help talk you down and put your mind at ease about this stuff. But relaxing and learning to just enjoy the material for itself is probably the biggest secret for succeeding, not just in this class, but in college courses in general. Even though they're exploring weird and strange ideas or things that you may not necessarily always agree with, take the course by its own rules. Play its game. Listen to what it has to say, and you can find something valuable in just about any college class you choose. There's a lot of really great, wonderful stuff here. Take advantage of it. It is an extraordinary privilege to be able to go to any institution of higher learning. And it's something that there are a lot of people in this world do not get the opportunity to do. And here you have that opportunity sitting right in front of you with a professor who is eager to help you succeed and share his passion in psychology with you. Why not make the best of that opportunity? That's it for this video. Work hard. Touch base with me at some point this week, and I'll see you online.